As a major research institution, Arizona State University offers the most online bachelor's degree programs, along with world-class faculty and dedicated support. Discover why ASU is ranked #1 in innovation for 9 consecutive years. Tap to learn more.
Nice buns, soft, fluffy, and ultra-low net carbs. Discover Hero Bread, the delicious ultra-low net carb bread with incredible taste and texture. Hero Bread has 0 grams of sugar and is under 100 calories per serving. Plus, high in fiber with 5 to 10 grams of protein per serving. Available on Amazon.com, Walmart.com, and at hero.co. That's HERO.co. Delicious, ultra-low net carb Hero Bread, buns and tortillas. Soft and fluffy, high in fiber, and with 0 grams of sugar, up to 10 grams of protein, coming in at under 100 calories. Order today at hero.co and use the code AH10 to get 10% off your first purchase. That's AH10 at hero.co. HERO.co. Order from hero.co now and get 10% off your first purchase with promo code AH10. That's 10% off with code AH10. HERO.co.
Welcome to Spotcast, Stardate 96819 Mark 75. My name is Tim Mitra and I'm in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Hamilton Lupus Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
And Jonathan is off on a covert mission once again, traveling around with Section 31. Alrighty, so I guess we'll start the show off with some fact check from last week. Did you put this fact check in, or did I put this fact check in?
I did not put this in, so
really?
I'm guessing it was you or Jonathan, perhaps.
Well, it has a timestamp, so I'm going to assume it's Jonathan. So at 2018 last week, we were talking about Anna and Elsa. Anna from Frozen is played by Kristen Bell, as I thought, and while her sister Elsa is played by Idina Menzel. I'm going to go with that, Idina Menzel. I have no idea who that is. At 2015, Title IX is a U.S. Oh, you talked about this. Title IX is a U.S. federal law passed in 1972. Right? Mm-hmm. At 4610, I mentioned mines. They're actually, I just went back and watched the episode just now. It's blackout mines is what Admiral Cornwall says they are, the ones that they mess up the sensors and stuff like that. Because at the point, I think in the show where Detmer says the sensors say that we're upside down, and that was the blackout mines messing with the sensors.
Right, so they're not just exploding mines, they're mines that are meant to disable and really mess up a ship, not necessarily just
and the
blow
shields and so on and so forth. Yeah, I noticed it wasn't doing very much damage to the shields, right? So
yeah, so maybe it is meant to be more of a less blow stuff up and more, did somebody try to sneak in? Let's disable them and then go interrogate them and maybe steal their technology, depending on who they are.
Maybe
instead of just eliminating them from the universe.
Well, it was a penal colony, so if people were trying to break in to break people out, that would kind of mess them up, right? Mm-hmm. The time travel game I mentioned last week was the Journeyman Project 2. Buried in Time. I believe they mentioned Daedalus a lot in that game, which is why I was thinking about that. At 1:13 in the show last week, I mentioned Carol from The Walking Dead. She's played by Melissa McBride. Yeah, definitely Jonathan must have put this in. Socratic, I was referring to last week, the Socratic method or the school of Socrates philosophy. Now, I was trying to remember why I was talking about it. I was referring to Culber being the Culber we're seeing now in the show is not the same Culber who died, because, obviously they buried his body and shipped it off to wherever they shipped stuff off to. Burial at sea, I guess, like they did with Arium today. Spoilers for today's show. The Socratic philosophy is where there's an ideal object, and all instances of that ideal are copies of the ideal object. Like if you have if there's an ideal concept of what a chair is, and you have a chair sitting in your dining room, that's not the same as the actual ideal chair. That was kind of what I got from my and like I said here in my notes, I might have butchered that, but that was my takeaway from my Body, Mind, and Soul course in first-year philosophy back in university days. And I mentioned that in 3001, The Final Odyssey by Arthur C. Clarke, they find Dr. Frank Poole is the person's name I couldn't remember, but Frank Poole is the name of the astronaut, along with Dr. Dave Borman, who were the two that were on their way off to Jupiter to examine the monolith floating in space in the movie 2001. So the future people thaw Frank Poole out and bring him back to life, and he still remembers everything and has to learn about life in 1,000 years in the future. But anyway, so, we should probably say, like, we haven't been saying spoilers much this season, but we should probably say yes, there will be a major spoiler when we discuss Star Trek Discovery, the Red Angel episode tonight. What is it, season 2, episode 9? Is it, Jaime? Do you know?
I think it is 10 is what I wrote down. I think Project Daedalus was number 9.
Yeah. So if you have not watched the show, you might want to, you can listen to probably the first, 30 minutes of the podcast, and then you might want to think about watching the show before you listen to the rest of this, because there will be a major spoiler at the end, as there was in the show. So, did I just spoil the show for people? Oh, no. You can never tell. All right, so we have some headlines. I think this first one is from you, Jaime.
Yeah, I mentioned Farscape, I think, in my not very spirited defense of the Orville, as another show that other people like, that I never really got into. And right around that time, there was a little news article here about the Farscape Essential Episodes guide, and you can stream the classic sci-fi series on Amazon in the US, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Nordic nations, and several other countries. It's also available on iTunes and DVD. I guess related to that coming out onto the Amazon Prime streaming service, somebody came out with like, all right, here's like the essential episodes if you wanted to get sort of the best beats of the show.
Yeah, it's funny, I never could tell the difference between Farscape and Babylon 5, to be honest with you. Like they just kind of they were so unlike Star Trek that they were just different. Sort of. So if you kind of just saw them in passing, you may not want to watch an episode of them. Did you watch Babylon 5 at all?
I never really watched Babylon 5 either. So I think if I'm hearing you right, they sort of blurred together in your mind. Is that what happened?
Yeah, and then there was another show called Andromeda, which is another Gene Roddenberry thing. It was just another odd duck. It just didn't kind of sit right. I suppose once we've been set up for sci-fi by Star Trek and by Star Wars, and things like Silent Running and 2001, they're more towards fantasy than what you would think of as science fiction. Yeah, so very sort of exotic-y. You can throw the rules out and do anything you want with those, right? And I guess there's a classification for that. I guess people like that kind of stuff. So what else have you got for follow-up?
Next one is a follow-up to what I'd mentioned, I think last time, about Bandersnatch, the Black Mirror and Netflix interactive film. And they said, there's going to be more like that. Well, Netflix actually announced what that's going to be. The very next one is, in the Choose Your Adventure style TV series stuff, is You versus Wild, which is based on Bear Grylls' Discovery Channel series Man versus Wild, where he goes out there and has to build shelters and find food and keep himself hydrated by drinking his own urine, that sort of thing. So apparently the construct will be that you are helping choose which paths and which sort of options he's taking in order to survive.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think this is going to be like a Flappy Birds kind of a take on Bandersnatch? Like where you just start cloning off different shows based on a sort of winning formula? I think Bandersnatch was unique, right?
Yeah, Bandersnatch is unique because, I guess, semi-spoilers for that replaying Bandersnatch and rewatching it, it's actually a direct part of the film itself. And I'm not sure if this one will necessarily lend itself towards, going through multiple times as part of the story itself versus being I went left, maybe this time I'll go right just to see what happens.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, from the point of view of Bandersnatch had a whole lot of sort of twists and turns. I wonder if they'll do the same kind of twists and turns in this. I mean, different alternate endings and fake endings and things like that, right? Where a lot of references to actual Netflix itself,
Right. So. I'm not clear how this one will work.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, because there were a lot of those, create your own adventure books and games and stuff like that back in the day, right?
Oh yeah. Just about every kind of genre you could imagine was represented. Pirates and space and military and stuff. So we'll find out on this one. It launches April 10th. So we'll find out rather soon as to what's going on here.
Right. So apparently 2 major characters are exiting the show as of the end of season 2. So spoilers for those of you watching the show who like it. Apparently, Ensign Mount is going to be leaving the show as Captain Pike, and Rebecca Romaine, also who plays Number One, are set to be leaving at the end of the season. But I mean, Rebecca Romaine was in for like 1 episode, maybe.
Yeah, it's. I mean, unless she becomes really critical in the latter half of this season, I hesitate to stretch it out and be like, she's a major new character. It's like, she's kind of a cameo. Nice, tip of the hat towards the original series. But Ensign Mount is really, as Captain Pike, is the one who's the the major character. That's it. Yep, for that headline. One major new character and one cameo to exit at the end of season 2.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, a cameo doesn't really matter, but I guess he's going to go back to... he has to go back to Enterprise at some point anyway, right? As part of the story.
Yeah, I think some folks sort of glommed onto this the wrong way and said, oh my gosh, it's Discovery's canceled, blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, no, think about it. He wasn't supposed to be their captain, right? They found a reason to get him in there, and people have come to know and love Anson Mount as Captain Pike. I totally get it, but he obviously had to move on at some point to become the captain of the Enterprise again. And I think I prefer to think of the captaincy of the Discovery as being more akin to like Harry Potter's Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, where like every year
or the drummer in Spinal Tap, right?
They just keep swapping them out.
Yeah, well, the drummers kept dying in the Spinal Tap band, right? So they must have had 5 or 6 drummers by the time they made the mockumentary. So yeah, just sort of like it's not. I think being captain of the Discovery seems to be detrimental to your health, right? Yeah, so you could end up in a wheelchair for the rest of your life or something like that, right? At some point. Spoilers for those who haven't watched the pilot episode of Star Trek. The next story from Jonathan, of course, and we've talked about this a few times, is James Gunn apparently is coming back as the director of Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Was he dismissed for questionable behavior? Is that why he was let go?
Ish. So he was dismissed because he had years ago made some rather crass and unfortunate dark humor tweets on Twitter, and as is the fashion, people who didn't like him for reasons, political reasons in this case, dredged up his history and found these tweets and manufactured outrage. Oh my god, I can't believe this person is the director, blah blah blah. And then Disney being a family-friendly brand doesn't really help the situation, so they overreacted by firing him. He subsequently got hired to do the sequel to Suicide Squad, and then now has quietly been rehired after all the dust has settled to return to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So I would guess this was a monetary decision by Disney. They probably thought, oh my gosh, we have to get rid of this director because we don't want to sink this movie. Realize, oh wait, people are more angry that we're that we're firing him. Whoops, this is a bad idea. We don't want to lose money on this movie. Let's quietly rehire him.
Yeah, quietly rehire him. Yeah. Sneaky. All right, and last one here by Jonathan is that American Gods has been renewed for a third season. I think I read the book. I'm trying to remember if this is a Neil Gaiman story that's on Netflix, and now it's on for a third season. I'm not sure where they are in the story, whether they're still on book or whatever, as we like to say. But I watched one episode. It looks rather interesting. It's a bit. Have you watched Legion at all, Jaime?
I have not.
Legion's a bit of head scratcher, right? Especially season 2. Jonathan and I talked about. I think the week you were off, we talked about the show, and first season was amazing, and second season was like, what is going on here? It was really convoluted and hard to follow. So, and I can't remember if we said it was coming back or not. I think it was only meant to be 3 seasons or something like that. But yeah, so American Gods is an interesting story. There's another Neil Gaiman story that's coming to life this is on Amazon Prime, by the way, too, I think, right? It is for us here in Canada, so I think it is for you as well, right?
Maybe. I haven't watched any of American Gods, so I'd have to check.
Do you have Amazon Prime?
Yes, I'm an Amazon Prime member, so I get their video series stuff for free. Well, paid as part of my subscription, but
Yeah. True. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So I'm trying to look at my link here, which is the next one here. Oh, yes. This is a link I found on Twitter I thought was funny. I thought you'd appreciate the humor of this one, but you can get Japanese toys of Godzilla and I've forgotten the name of the other 2 monsters, but they're giving press conferences and they've got their heads bowed and they're apologizing for destroying all of the cities that they have over the years, right? So there you go. You can get your little plastic Godzilla monster apologizing for destroying cities, right?
Yeah. So they have Godzilla, Mecha Godzilla, and King Ghidorah are the 3.
If you scroll down a bit, there's another one too.
Ghidorah with a G. I think it's pronounced Ghidorah.
Well, there's Hedorah as well, down further down. So.
Oh, the magic of Twitter means that I'm just seeing people responding, and who knows what other things it's showing you besides showing me. I'll take your word for it.
All right. Okay. I just clicked on the tweet that I linked in here. All right. Yeah. So that's mine. Next one is your story, honey.
Yeah. The official trailer. We've had some teasers, but this is the official trailer for Toy Story 4, the latest Pixar film that is launching on June 21st, 2019, and it stars. It still has Woody as a largely main character, but looks like Lil Bo Peep. Lil Bo Peep.
Yeah, Bo Peep.
Yeah, Bo Peep is going to be the other starring character. So she is returning to the fold.
Yeah, that's Annie Potts, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I think she sort of saves the day or whatever.
It looks like it. It looks like a much more active version of Bo Peep.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah, I think Bo Peep and the gang have been separated, and she's just come back into the fold, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and again, it kind of goes into what are the ramifications of being a toy, and what does it mean to fulfill that role that you have in life. And perhaps more stunningly, they have also sort of broached the topic of what does life even mean for these things, because there's kind of some horrifying implications here. So trailer starts out with Woody saying like, whatever their little girl owner is, that's a fact check item. Whoever owns them now, the little girl, she's made friends at school.
They mentioned her a couple of times in the trailer too, sadly.
Yeah, and it's like, no, she didn't like make human friends. She literally made a new friend toy.
Yes,
that's like a little arts and craft project. Spoon, fork, spork with stuff glued on, and that he has come to life. And the implications of this are sort of weird to me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Bonnie. Yeah, there you go. Bonnie adds a reluctant new toy called Forky to her room, and he's made out of a spork and pipe cleaners. And
yes, Bonnie, played by Emily Hahn, according to Toy Story 3. Anyway, so I don't know if she's returning to Toy Story 4 to voice the young girl. All right. The next post here from Jonathan is, again, the Terminator finally has a name, and there's a picture here on the IO9 website of Natalie Reyes, I guess, Mackenzie Davis joining Linda Hamilton in the Terminator Dark Fate movie. So Linda Hamilton looking very much like a survivor of The Walking Dead. In fact,
definitely got that vibe.
Military. Well, she had that whole military thing in Terminator 2, right? Like she had survived this. She's a survivor, right?
Yeah, and I'm reading some of the plot line here. So they're saying that this film will reportedly ignore
the other
Terminator Genesis and Salvation. So I'm not sure how this fits in, if at all, to where things are going. It's a very confusing timeline. We try to make it all reconcile.
So they're not taking away this one with Claire Danes and the young guy who plays John Connor? That was the third one, right?
Yeah, unclear at this moment, because I don't think that Terminator 3 could possibly have happened in this particular timeline, or at least to be more difficult to deal with, because she's dead in that movie, right?
And Hamilton?
Yeah, and instead of having her body... presumably John Connor would know if she was dead.
Well, maybe they froze her and thawed her out and brought her back 1,000 years later.
I mean, that's entirely possible, given the film series. Remember, they go and desecrate her coffin, and it turns out that was her plan to, have herself cremated and fill her coffin with guns.
Well, clearly Christopher Plummer wasn't available to play her, right?
Yeah.
This is going to be our new trope. You get it? You can thaw them out and bring them back 1,000 years later. That'll be our new trope for this season. Season 2 of Spotcast, which you're enjoying now on the Spotcast Radio Network.
I feel like at some point, just a tiny segue, I feel like somebody somewhere should get all of the twins of major actors. So Linda Hamilton has a twin. We talked about Iceman having a twin. Just get everybody's identical twin and make a film with them. There you go. There's an idea there.
I wonder if that's been done. Because there's another Canadian actress who has a twin sister. I don't remember her name. You see, she used to be in a lot of shows, and Law and Order, I think, is one of them. She was one of the lawyers in Law and Order at one point. And she's been in a number. I haven't seen her in too many acts. I think Jill Hennessy. You know who that is?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, well, we'll have to look her up. But she's got a twin sister who sometimes acts in things. And same sort of idea, right? It's Jill Hennessy. I'm sure if I tell you, Jill Hennessy, she's right here, number one. She was in a show called Crossing. She was in Law and Order. She was in Wild Hogs. I don't know. You probably haven't seen those. Or she's still acting. She's in Bull and the other things. Blacklist. Guess they bring her out whenever they need her. But yeah, her twin sister is also an actor too. But her twin sister sister's actually a scientist and an actor. So she works here in Toronto. Cool. Yeah, but that'd be a cool, interesting thing to have the twins, to figure out who else has identical twin siblings, right?
Yeah, just collect them all. It's like, does Anna Paquin have a twin? Good, hire her.
I don't know. Well, and there's the two girls that played the baby on Full House, right?
That's right, Mary-Kate and Ashley. So, like, hire one of them.
Yeah. Isn't one of them acting? Just one of them acting now, or their sister or something like that? Younger sister?
I'm not sure. Yeah,
I think the younger sister has a career, but I think one's into fashion, and I'm not sure what the other one's doing.
Oh, does Lori Loughlin, Aunt Becky from Fuller House, does she have a twin sister? Great. Guess what?
She could be looking for work soon. Yeah, that's true. She could be looking for work. All right, let's move on. Speaking of resurrecting the dead, since we're already talking about this, is the third official Terminator, James Cameron Terminator movie, and we're also talking about Toy Story 3 is actually the fourth, but we talked about Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Well, here's another 3 for you. Bill and Ted apparently have announced that they will come back. It says the world is about to get a lot more excellent.
That's right.
The two famous dudes. I don't know the other guy's name, but Keanu Reeves and I don't know what his name is. The other guy, Ted, I guess. No, Bill, I guess, from making an announcement at the Hollywood Bowl that they're going to be doing a new movie.
Yeah, so that would be Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves.
Okay.
On a Twitter video that are announcing Bill and Ted Face the Music, the third in the series, reprising their roles of William Bill S. Preston Esquire and Ted Theodore Logan in let's see, looks like August 21st, 2020.
Wow. Does this mean I have to go back and watch that movie now?
So, I mean, there's only two. So, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure from 1989 and Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey from 1991.
Yeah, I don't think I've actually sat down and watched from beginning to end Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I've watched parts. I think I know the story, right? And it's very similar to what's the White Castle one, Harold and Kumar? Same sort of idea. They go on this adventure, but this one they go through time to sort of help their science test or whatever, right? Or learn about science. But and they use all the time travel conveniences, like being able to go and get the keys before they need them, kind of thing, right?
Yes, they were helped out by, and actually I wonder how they'll handle this, because George Carlin is not available again. Here is somebody else who has a twin, as dark as that is.
Maybe it'll be Kevin Smith, maybe, who knows?
Or Christopher Plummer.
Christopher
Plummer. And I'm also curious because the whole premise of that series was that George Carlin was going back in time with a time machine to help them pass their test, because if they didn't pass their test, they wouldn't stay as the rock group Wild Stallions, and the Wild Stallions music was going to revolutionize the world and cause world peace and prosperity.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
So now here they are as much older individuals, and presumably there's not everything is perfect, so they have to fix things.
Well, I hope maybe the whole music tie-in is the Wild Stallions and the Hollywood Bowl, right? That's where they made the announcement.
Yeah, and if you look at some of the pictures immediately below them, it is shocking to me that Alex Winter has been a director, so he's been out of the limelight, but still involved in the industry behind the scenes. He looks like somebody who has aged in the past 30-ish years. Keanu Reeves is a damn vampire because he looks like he has not aged a day. Maybe like
all
a week.
The maple syrup.
It's keeping him healthy.
Yeah, for sure. Faux show. The article is from me. This is related to Terry Gilliam. This article is called "The Man Who Was Almost Killed by Don Quixote." Terry Gilliam, on the movie that took him 3 decades to make, 30 years. I knew it was a long time to make this movie, but it was besotted with all kinds of disasters. Insurance companies pulling out and causing the movie to close down because of accidents that they had. I think they were attacked they had weather issues. They had problems with their sets being stolen and lost and things like that. And so there's a really good article here, and I've got linked in the show notes for those of you who are Terry Gilliam fans and you haven't heard about this yet. But it's an article about Terry Gilliam and his work process and about his career and things like that. But just amazingly that it's taken this long for this movie to be made. Now, all the more reason for me to go see it on April 10th or 16th. 16th or whenever it's coming out. April 16th, I think it is. No, April 10th. It's doing a worldwide, or North American one night only kind of showing. But I did hear that it's going to go into release later on. But the last movie that Terry Gilliam did, they only played one night in Toronto, the Zero Theorem. So it went right to Blu-ray. So yeah, definitely looking forward to this movie. And of course, there was, I think, the making of movie. I think I talked about the fact that there was sort of I don't know if you know, Apocalypse Now had a making of Apocalypse Now movie. Jonathan would know the name of it. Which sort of followed the sort of disastrous way that they made the movie. But there was a documentary called Lost in La Mancha, which I think is on Netflix. At least I saw it there a while ago, and it sort of follows them trying to make the movie back in the day, and how disastrous that was, right? So because all that came out of the first time to try to make the movie was the documentary. So cool movie to see.
Cool.
Yep. All right, what's next? So Jonathan posted here the Stranger Things season 3 trailer. Have you seen it?
I've seen the trailer. Yeah. Bring the gang back together for another adventure fighting the Upside Down.
Yes. So rather interesting trailer. Short piece. I mean, it's sort of similar to the Game of Thrones teaser that they put out a while ago, right? This is the one where I've forgotten the name of the kid with the hat.
Dustin.
Dustin. Yeah. So Dustin's walking through the living room, and I guess the other kids are behind him trying to surprise him, and yeah. So there's a comical ending there, but they all end up screaming, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Jonathan's a big fan of Angel. I don't know if you did watch Angel back in the day, and Buffy?
I sort of watched a little bit of Buffy. I definitely didn't watch Angel, so I don't know which person is this character that they're talking about, who the actor is.
Oh, David Borenza. I don't know Borenza. He's the guy who plays Angel, the brooding-looking guy.
Oh, the main guy. Okay, yeah, I know who Angel is, but I don't know the actor. As well.
He was in Bones, the TV show Bones, about the I guess she's a coroner, right? He plays an FBI agent in that show. Yeah, so right. Yeah, he's Angel, who was spun off from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So yeah, apparently there's a new one coming back. I don't know how to say his name though. David, the guy who played Angel. Let's call him that. Stop yelling at your TV. Stop yelling at your phone. Yeah, so I've only watched Buffy coming and going. I wasn't really that entrenched with it. I was busy with other parts of my life at that point in time. But there you go. All right, and like I said, this just in. Hey, this just in. This may be more interesting to you, Jaime. I don't know, but we just found out that Godzilla, King of the Monsters, is going to finally bring Rodan's ferocity back to Hollywood. Rodan, the bird-shaped. What do you call them? What do you call those big guys?
It's like a pterodactyl.
No, I mean, what do you call the giant monsters?
The kaiju?
Kaiju, yeah. So the larger-than-life monsters. Bigger than the biggest building in your city, right? Oh, wait, is this... Rodan made his eponymous movie debut 63 years ago, co-starring Godzilla 8 years later in... I'm going to say the one about the three-headed monster you just said.
I think it's Ghidorah, but I could be wrong. I'd have to watch a film clip somewhere to see.
Yeah, who knows? Oh, it's by director Michael Dougherty, brought back in for Rodan. I don't know. I've not seen Trick or Krampus. Have you seen Krampus?
Krampus? No, I haven't seen that.
Anyway, well, just that was just on the Space Channel. We'll have a link in the show notes for people. All right, so once again, last chance. This is a major spoiler for season 2, episode 10, The Red Angel of the season of Star Trek Discovery. Do we want to do this is Jonathan's turn to do the recap, I think, right? So you and I'll have to arm wrestle for it.
I threw my
your joke notes in here, yeah.
My joke notes, because they help me remember what's going on. I also try to type them out as quick as I can in between the commercials on my $5.99 plan.
Sure.
I'm like, well, if I'm going to be here with commercials, I might as well make use of it to say, okay, which happened in these scenes. So I try my best to capture what happened, and you can help fill in the gaps. And
why don't you do that? Because I've got lots of notes, and I kind of had to rush through it because it was a little late getting started, but I missed the very first bit you got here. So why don't you start in with that?
Yeah, we end up starting out on this episode with Ariam, who is deceased, and her data from her electronic parts is wiped. As I say here, like an iPhone that you're going to resell, and then they have a funeral for her.
Is that why they took her skull cap off there? At one point, they take her skull cap off, and you can see her brain in there?
Yeah, I think it was to get access to the data that they wanted to wipe. I think they wanted to make sure that there wasn't any chance of the AI virus.
To get the SIM out, take the SIM out as well, right?
Yeah, and and this kind of leads into the like conference meeting recap of the Control AI and what they were encountering with it, trying to use Arium to become self-aware.
So just a sidebar for a second. You know, in movies when the person thinks that they've got a cell phone in their hand and they think they're being tracked, right? And so they pull a battery out of the back of the cell phone and they pull a SIM card out of the SIM tray and they drop it down on the sidewalk and they stomp on it with their foot. Like, that drives me crazy every time I see that. Because what is the SIM card going to do? Like, once it's out of the phone and it's powered down, there's no way they can track you on a SIM card. Am I wrong?
The only thing I can think of is that they think that it's bugged in some way, in which case I'd probably just be, dumping the phone body, even without pulling everything out, just tossing it into a trash can or the ocean or whatever happened to be nearby.
Put it in a cup, bottle of water. Yeah, exactly.
Shove it into like an open window in a taxi cab that's going by, anything that would keep it away from you. I think it's a little dramatic to like pull the battery. It's like, what, you're worried about your phone? I mean, if you're that worried, you can go buy a new phone, for heaven's sake.
Just chuck it into the woods, exactly. Yeah. Well, the other side of that trope is that, when somebody knows they're being followed and they leave the phone like on a bumper of a bus or something like that while they go in a completely different direction, right? So, and then when the FBI catches up, they find it's just, sitting on the bumper of this bus. Anyway, back when buses had bumpers, I guess that also doesn't work these days because everything's streamlined and has rubber stuff all over it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so back to your recap there. Sorry. Yeah.
So in this little conference meeting, they get interrupted by Tilly, who says that she was going through the data that was left over within Aaron's memories and found a file called Project Daedalus, which apparently is a bio-neural file from the Red Angel, and which is supposedly Michael.
Dun, dun, dun.
They bring in, here's autocorrect. They bring Dr. Culber with a B, who is dressed really snazzy, like he's ready to go out to the nightclub. They bring him out to the medical bay and they have him confirm that, yep, all his scans show that, it's definitely Michael's neural signature. And they're like, well, the ramifications of this. And then, Section 31 shows up and says, hey guys, what's up? By the way, Project Daedalus was our thing, that we were creating this Red Angel technology for time travel purposes because 20 years ago they'd gotten wind of the Klingons trying to do something very similar, and they were in this weaponized state of like, we got to get the time travel weapon before they do. And they had thought that this stuff was destroyed by the Klingons, so they're really interested in like, hey, what if we like trap the Angel and get the engineering folks and Stamets and company to work with Georgiou to come up with this mousetrap, as they call it, that will allow them to trap the Angel and then talk to the person inside and be like, hey, what the heck? Why are you doing all this red signal stuff? What's going on with the future?
Sure. Now, there's a few things you sort of glossed over too, or you skipped over. One was that they had this, I guess, Ash was confined to quarters and they kind of released him, take off the armband and apologize to him. But other important point was they were talking about what happened, like how did this AI work and all that kind of stuff. And apparently the AI came from the future to try and get to infuse control, this sentient sort of, or not quite sentient, system that sort of governed Starfleet or helped the brass make their decisions, and they wanted control to evolve and take over and become this sort of better system and help this future AI thing exploit what was going on. That's what the Red Angel is trying to stop, right, from happening.
Right.
So we think, right?
They do make the connection between like, hey, when the Red Angel uses a wormhole to come into our time, they are using a mechanism that tethers them to their own time so they can get back, since the wormholes are unstable. But that also opens the opportunity for the AI to come from the future, as it did with the what do they call it? The time hole, time tornado. Yeah. I forget what the time hurricane. I forget what they called it in the one episode.
Tsunami. Yeah. You're talking about what Tilly was calling it a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. I
can't remember. That's some follow up right there. Some fact check. I can't remember what they called it.
Well, everything's better with time in front of it, she would say, right? So.
Yeah. So they're working out how are we going to do this. Stamets is like, it's possible, but we need all this tech that we don't have. And Georgiou's like, hey, guess what? We've actually got a specific place that we can go to that has all this stuff ready to roll. So just get your technology stuff set up and let's do this thing. And Culber waltzes in on his way to the nightclub, and JoJo knows about them from her own versions of them in her universe, the mirror universe, and ends up like coming on to Stamets,
making the moves.
Yeah, making the moves to the point where Culber's like, "What the heck? Cut that out."
Yeah, he's gay, right? He says, yeah.
Yeah, she's like, he was a little more flexible and more fluid with his sexuality, and so were you.
And she describes him as pansexual. So both of them were.
Yeah, so it's unclear what game she's playing here, because she's very clearly going out of her way to antagonize these two gentlemen.
Mm-hmm. So SOF4 is the name of the planet that, for those of you wanting to fact check that one, is the planet where they're going to go to and do this mouse trap, right?
Right. Let's see. Then we get some quicker scenes that try to get some of the dynamics going forward, like Non talking to Michael about that situation they had with Ariam and the learning that she had about who Michael is as a person and the appreciation for everything that went on. As unfortunate as it turned out with the death of Ariam, kind of definitely understood the pros and cons of that. Then we have a whole bunch of confrontation. We have Saru confronting Captain Leland about Section 31's behavior. So newly hulked up, ready to roll, beat people up. Saru is like, what you're doing is not cool. We also have Michael coming in and separately chatting with Leland, and this is where we learn that her parents worked for Section 31, and they were charged with building the Red Angel was their whole thing. And the one thing that was missing was this time crystal, but they were able to steal one off the black market from the Klingons, who apparently tracked it back to the planet and attacked the facility, which resulted in the death of Michael Burnham's parents. And this was, of course, very shocking to her, because she's been holding on to this pain her whole life of like, the only reason they died is because as a kid I'd wanted to see this supernova event, and that's why they hung around, and we were just unfortunate that the Klingons showed up and killed everybody. It turns out nope, it was just Leland being looking to level up within the company and being real ambitious, and his sloppiness ended up in people dying, including Michael Burnham's parents. So she beats him up and she gives him some quick whacks across the face for her mother and father, and she ends up still in anger mode confronting Ash Tyler, like, dude, what the heck, who the heck are you? What does it say about your ethics if you're willing to accept what these people do?
She says, did you know, like, to Ash, of course, how could he know, really? But the Emperor knew, right? Or Emperor Georgiou knew. Captain, what are we calling her now? Admiral Captain Georgiou, right?
Yeah, it's hard to say it without being confusing, because if you say the Emperor or Empress Georgiou, she's technically not that anymore, but I know who you're talking about versus... Yeah, we'll come back to Georgiou. I want to talk about her. I'll talk about her after the recap a bit, because I have some questions about her, so some opinions and thoughts about her as well. Right. So back to the confrontations. Well, right in between there, because there's some therapy going on. There's Dr. Culber getting therapy from Admiral Cornwell, since she apparently was a therapist prior to becoming an admiral. And he sort of lays it out as like, look, I don't know what to do here. This is so odd to me. I'm me, but not me. I have these memories of this love for this man, for Stamets. And obviously I don't want to hurt him, but I just don't have these same feelings anymore, because it's like a completely new body, like this experience. She says, crazy. Well, she says to him, you are new. Like he at one point he refers to Culver in the past tense, and he questions her about that. She says, well, you're not really, this is what I was talking about earlier with the Socratic method. You're not really the same person that died, because there was a body that they buried, of that guy, right? Or injected into space, or whatever they do with bodies. And explaining that, you're sort of, we have no way to understand your sense of identity, because this is a whole new type of person you are, right? Yeah. It's you, but you're not you. Are you really you? And it's completely understandable on what's going on there. So he gets his therapy. Michael is getting her own therapy by, dressing up in her Discovery Under Armour gear and going and I was going to say punching bag, but it's more of like a punching dummy, I think, that she's beating up, taking out her frustration. And Spock shows up, and he's being very Spock, and it's just irritating the heck out of her, because she's very emotional. And they sort of hash it out of like, hey, kind of makes sense that this Red Angel would be you, because it's sort of acting with your sort of personality. This is how you would do things, how you would try to help things along. Yeah, he says, what did he say to her? Something about responsibility. He sort of insults her at one point. I think earlier on in
in the episode, he says something like, yeah, it's definitely you because she has your drive to take on responsibility of situations that are beyond your control.
Right.
To which she replies, thanks for saying that out loud to everybody in the room, Spock, Really appreciate that. But yeah, the two of them come together at the end there. He kind of says, he laments that he wasn't in the room to watch her punch Leland in the face. He says, I would have found that satisfying. Yeah, and they kind of, in their sort of Burnham, Spocky kind of logical way, realize that that this conversation they're having with each other, even though it was awkward and unexpected, it kind of helps both of them resolve some issues that they're having individually, right, and together. Yeah,
and it ends up moving things forward because they realize the answer to the question they've been wondering of like, okay, so why doesn't the Red Angel always appear with the signals? And they realize, oh, wait, it's because it appears whenever Michael is in trouble.
Right.
And they go back to, oh, yeah, it showed up to Spock when she was going to die, and it showed up when she was dying on the asteroid. So they quickly figure out that they have to put Michael into this Houdini-type situation of like, let's put you in extreme danger and take you to the edge of killing you so that we can cause the Red Angel to appear.
And rescue you, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a crazy plan where they're gonna like strap her into a chair on the facility. They're gonna beam down all the Ghostbusters trap equipment around there so they can trap the Angel, and they basically have to like shut off all of the life support systems and open up the ceiling, I guess, the roof. Open up the roof like a retractable stadium roof. Open it up so they can let the highly toxic and apparently very painful to breathe in atmosphere in to cause Burnham to be in distress.
Yeah. Now they call it the grandfather paradox, which we should talk about, which is because they think that Michael Burnham is the Red Angel, the Red Angel won't let Michael Burnham die because then she will cease to exist, And so, like Marty McFly, she has to come back to the past to rescue Michael Burnham on multiple occasions, right? So, and so the variance in why she shows up is what Michael Burnham herself, right?
Yeah, and I guess there's a little bit of a nod to, you said it was Dr. Frank Poole from 2001 that goes to 3001. Mm-hmm. It's basically what ends up happening to Philip J. Fry in the Futurama series, where he does go from the year 2000, 2000-ish to 3000-ish, and he also becomes his own grandfather,
right?
After doing the nasty and the pasty, as he describes, with his grandmother.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, and then it becomes with his grandmother. he is his own grandfather, and then just because Futurama is so crazy, that causes this special thing to his brain, which is how he is able to help resolve the problem at hand of these invading brain aliens. I'm sure we can find in a Wikipedia like a description of this whole thing. It's very weirdly complicated, but that was a segue there to let's come back to let's come back here to what's happening here with the grandfather paradox they mentioned. Ash Tyler and Michael Burnham have a moment. She's like, look, we're just full of anger, didn't know what to do with it, got this terrible situation coming on. They embrace, they sort of give their loving moments to each other because they don't really know if Burnham's going to survive this thing. It's like a crazy plan. Mm-hmm. Stamets and Culber even sort of have a moment where they're trying to reconcile a little bit, but it's like it's not really the time. And Stamets, it's like unclear if it's ever going to be the time because he can kind of feel the tension there in their relationship. Right. And I have my note here that Giorgio smiles. I'm like, again, really unclear what her plan is here, what she is trying to do to these two. Like why, she could be mean at times, but she generally has like a reason for her plans or machinations for this. So unclear what this means.
Well, as I was going to say, we'll talk about it again afterwards, but even her behavior towards Burnham, right? Like, because she knows that this isn't her Michael Burnham, right, from her universe. Mm-hmm. But she still, looks on her as. But we'll talk about it in a few minutes. But anyway, let's get on to Burnham saying, "You have to let me die."
Yeah, so killing Michael Burnham is what they do. They strap her into the chair. They open up the floodgates for all the bad atmosphere to come in. And
as Spock straps her in, she says, "What happens if this goes wrong?" And he looks at her and says, "Well, I'll be charged with killing a Starfleet officer again, right?"
Yeah. And, you know, Culber has told us that, like, look, her oxygen level can't get below like 40%-ish, somewhere around there, because if that happens, she's just going to die. There's no way to revive her. And she does go lower than that, but she, you know, signals to Spock, like, you know, let it happen. You know, I believe in this plan. So he ends up taking the other folks hostage, holding a gun on them, saying, no, you're not going to go in there and save her. You got to let this happen. And they get lucky that, you know, as per plan, the Red Angel does appear and uses some sort of beam, some red beam, to revive the presumed dead Michael Burnham. Stamets trips the Ghostbusters trap. You know, they've actually got the force field around it and everything to deal with it.
To hold her in place, yeah.
And I guess I forgot to mention that the other part was they wanted to rapidly close the wormhole, the time wormhole. So they had the Section 31 ship with the strong enough, was it deflector? I can't remember.
Yeah, just like deflectors or sensors or something like that. Yeah, deflectors, I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, so Ash Tyler's over there with Leland. They're like, all right, we're gonna bring this down. I guess Leland needs to go get, you know, the security protocols overridden, so he goes over to the Face ID machine and tries to get the computer to unlock the protocols.
Authorized security override. And so we have to go back and watch that part of the show a couple of times, because he gets the whole Red Riser, you know, Christmas Story, Daisy Rifle, poke you in the eye thing, right? Because, you know, as he's doing this, I think the thing echoes back to him what he's saying.
Yeah, in a really creepy way.
And then somehow it ends up, a spike comes out and pokes him in the eye. And I don't know if he dies or he's just got a bad eye now, but, you know, as a pirate.
Yeah, it's like the thing that you know it's not going to happen, but you always worry it's going to happen when you go to the eye doctor and they do the glaucoma test. You know, you get that thing uncomfortably close to your eye, and then they puff you with a blast of air.
Yeah, this is like the scene from The Next Generation where Picard is remembering having his eye drilled out, right? Or is that from one of the movies?
That was First Contact, I think.
Yeah, but it was after he was Locutus, right?
Yeah. So he was having the memory of it happening, or at least a nightmare of it happening.
Well, because don't they replace his eye when he's Locutus?
Good question.
They put that whole Borg thing on his head. Implants. What do they call them? Implants, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, so Leland is not having a good time. But the Red Angel is trapped, and it emerges from the individual emerges from the suit, kind of Iron Man style. It sort of like, you know, allows them to come out.
Well, they do an EMP blast, and they knock out the tech.
Yeah, but it doesn't just like, like collapse to the ground. It doesn't just like freeze in place. It like sort of lets them ooze out, like sort of slip out of it. It's hard to describe what that looked like. But like the suit was still standing there after it let them out. Yeah,
well, the suit, we should point out, I don't think we mentioned that, like, Leland's when he's telling Burnham that his mother was a brilliant engineer, that she actually made the suit.
Right.
Yeah, so she, and of course, who falls out of the suit?
It's Burnham's mum. Her mum.
And then the show's over.
Yeah.
With no sneak peek of next week's episode. At least I didn't see one.
I'd have to go take a look. I don't think it was showing on CBS All Access, but I bet you they probably have it on there by now, or they probably have it like on YouTube or something.
Mm-hmm. You mean the what's happening up next week?
Yeah, the little sneak previews.
Yeah, I don't know how Jonathan sees those, because I've never managed to see one. Mind you, my PVR. Lately, my PVR has been refusing to record the show, so I had to make sure I had it manually recorded today. But I waited after the show was over, and there was still nothing on the channel. So
yeah, I bet you they'll put it out on YouTube. I've sometimes seen it at the end of the CBS All Access stream, and
you mean it'll be like posted by Star Trek CBS?
Yeah, they'll put a teaser for like the next week. I'm not sure when exactly they do that. And I'm unclear why it doesn't just automatically come out, because you would think like, hey, next time, come watch again.
Yeah. So let's talk about Emperor Georgiou, right? Because she's such a badass when she's in her own universe, right? And she's nice to Michael Burnham when she thinks she's really her Michael Burnham, but even they were like, you know, in the Mirror Universe, they were sort of always out, you know, to protect themselves, and they were always out for each other, and, you know, so even though Michael Burnham was raised by Emperor Georgiou in that universe, they weren't really super trusting of each other, right? And then they come here, she comes into our universe, she joins Section 31. Michael Burnham, as she says to Christopher Pike, I'll have to explain to you the relationship between me and Emperor Georgiou at some point in the future. Like, that's a story for a later time, she tells me, like 3 or 4 episodes ago, right? And so, but I'm finding the way that Emperor Georgiou was behaving. In fact, it sounded like when she was talking to Admiral Cornwall, and that the Admiral knew she wasn't really Captain Georgiou. Did you not get that sense today?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what she does and doesn't know, because they did mention that a very limited number of folks know beyond just folks on the Discovery crew.
Well, I thought that Cornwall was sort of involved somehow with Section 31. She kind of sort of wasn't she sort of involved in an earlier episode where she was like with them on their base?
I think we'd have to go back. I could have sworn early in the season she helped give the official cover story, right? That Georgiou is like, oh look, she was discovered. And she's totally. We thought she was presumed dead.
Last season, maybe. Yeah.
She's totally fine, and here she is. She's retiring and from her captaincy, and she's joining Section 31.
Sure. And because also the part where Michael Burnham's going off to her death, they have a moment together. I didn't make any notes of that particular point in time, but like it even ends up with the Emperor putting her hand on Georgiou's shoulder, and then Georgiou, putting her own hand over top, and sort of like they have a moment of mom and daughter kind of sentiment, right? Mm-hmm. Which to me doesn't fit with the Emperor Georgiou character. It fits more with Captain Georgiou, or that sort of sensibility, right? But because throughout the whole episode, Georgiou is behaving very strange in very many different situations, right?
Yeah, it's hard to tell what's going on there. I mean, on the one hand, you could have sort of the even though it's not her Michael Burnham, she looks exactly like her and probably acts a lot like her. So if there is some sense of loss, I mean, this is the sort of thing where people will lose their pets, and then they want a cloning technology so they could resurrect Fido, right? Bring Rover back. There could be that aspect to it. The other one that's possible is it could be part of a ploy, because she was acting quite sympathetic towards Michael, and at the same time she was like being very antagonistic to Stamets and Culber, and it's unclear what sort of scheme, if any, that she has going on there.
Antagonistic, or she was toying with them, like
to what end though? I mean, sure, maybe
go have some fun later on, kind of thing, because that's kind of what she was implying, right?
I mean, maybe, but it could also be as part of like a longer game, whatever her game plan is. It seems like it's part of a larger strategy, perhaps.
Yeah, it's funny because there's been some exchanges too. Like they haven't really dropped the F-bomb or the S-bomb much. I think they have a few times this season, but because it's still being shown here in Canada at 8 p.m. on Space Channel, right? So we're not supposed to have explicit things happen until after 9 p.m. That's kind of the rule here, right? And we talked about Discovery getting in trouble for doing, or Space Channel for getting in trouble for showing the show in an earlier time slot than they probably should, right? But this episode, there was a few, I think when Culber and the Emperor and Stamets were having that exchange in the middle of the show, I was thinking to myself, this is a little too adultish for primetime television, right? Did you not get that sense?
Yes, and I don't normally think of it in that context because I'm, on a paid streaming service, which is more like HBO, where, you had to go out of your way. I hadn't really thought about the fact that it's coming out on sort of normal television. Wait, is it cable television for you guys?
Yeah, well, you pay extra for the channel. Like, it's like, it's not part of the standard package that everybody gets, right?
Right, but it's not even over the air. This is definitely part of like a cable television package. My 3-year-old granddaughter could walk into the room at this time, because wouldn't necessarily. I mean, most kids go to bed at 8 o'clock at night. I would think these nights, but I'm sure there are many underage kids watching this show with their parents, kind of thing, right? Yeah, I don't know how things work in Canada, but there's like some middle ground. So you have the broadcast networks that get just over the air. Like if you own television, it will get those channels. It's CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox. Those will tend to get a lot more scrutiny from the FCC around this. You get a little bit more leeway when it comes to cable networks, like just the default packages and stuff. I think there's an assumption there of like, look, you went out of your way. You need to make sure you cover your bases with your kids and make sure. because it wasn't like...
Well, they do the viewer discretion
as
advisories before, after, between each commercial, right?
Right. And then there's like the premium channel stuff like HBO, Showtime, Cinemax stuff that can just go hog wild.
People are walking around without clothes on in those shows, right?
Yeah, Game of Thrones, that sort of thing. I'm guessing that Discovery is kind of in that borderline, so it kind of makes sense that if space is something that it's part of a cable network over there, it's probably why it's coming out at, would you say 8, when normally shows would be at 9?
Yeah.
I'm going to assume, as we mentioned a week or two ago, that when CBS is talking about bringing, old seasons of Discovery, so like last season sort of thing, off of the paid network and onto normal CBS, I'm guessing they will either have to dramatically edit and or push it to later in prime time, like the way Saturday Night Live, which is raunchier, tends to be later for that reason. And when they replay episodes earlier, they're like, by the way, this thing originally aired at a later time. Hint, hint. If you got little kids hanging around, might want to change the channel or consider your chances.
Yeah, but they don't, on Saturday Night Live, they don't swear, right? They come close. They
hints innuendo and
I mean, there are people stuff who've been fired from Saturday Night Live for dropping F-bombs and things like that, right?
Yeah, it's a complicated thing when it comes to broadcasting versus like streaming channel stuff. Getting back to JoJo, I really don't know what's happening here. She's a very mysterious character. It seems like she is putting her tendrils into Section 31 and actively working, if not directly counter to Leland, she certainly seems like she's trying to push him out of the way for her own reasons.
Yeah. Oh, do you think maybe she was behind the poke in the eye thing that Leland got hit with?
It's entirely possible. I mean, she had mentioned to Michael, she's had the antagonism with him earlier, right? And like, hey, I know that you were involved in Michael Burnham's parents' death. She had warned about that earlier. And then she told Michael this episode, I knew I didn't want to tell you because it wasn't my story to tell, but I made sure that the story was told. Right. Unclear on the reasons why. I guess we'll find out, next week or the week after.
See, I would love to have Jonathan on the show for this particular question I'm going to ask you, but the reveal, the fake reveal, the what do you call it, in sleight of hand that they do in the middle of the show where Tilly says to Burnham, "It's you are the Red Angel." Like they have that search for Spock moment with Ariam, where I was sort of thinking that by the end of last episode we didn't get any closure on what happens to Ariam after she gets pushed out the airlock. I would have thought they would just let her float out in space, but apparently they go and retrieve her, and then erase her brain and all that kind of stuff. But they put her into a photon torpedo cell like they normally do, and they fire her out the torpedo tube or whatever you call that thing, and she goes flying towards the planet. So I'm thinking, what's next? Search for Ariam as she gets resurrected on this new Genesis planet kind of thing.
Spock's like, I'll have to take a mental note that this is the way we might do this.
This is an interesting way to, I'll have to put this in my will, right? Because it's kind of a prelude to Search for Spock. I think I thought about it from the joke point of view, but I didn't really think about it from a practical point of view. But yeah, and then so there's that, and then there's but coming back to this sort of, it's you, and the DNA all points to you. It's all pointing to you, right? Well, I don't know what you know about DNA, but a child and a parent don't have identical DNA. A twin, Aaron Ashmore and Sean Ashmore would have very similar DNA, if not identical, right? But not a parent and a child. So they're, with all their fancy computer systems and stuff like that, they're telling Burnham that, are they saying it's a 99.9% match between you? They're saying, or it's a 100% match between you and the Red Angel. And then it turns out it's not, in fact, Burnham.
There's a little bit of clarification I want to throw in there, because they didn't say a DNA match, which...
they said
bioneural signature, so it seemed more like a brain path sort of thing, which even the mirror universe Michael Burnham probably would have passed the DNA test, but definitely wouldn't pass the bioneural one.
Well,
so
in the bioneural thing, I would argue that bioneural pathways are generated and changed through life experience, because, as you learn about things and you experience different things, your synapses form in a different way. I mind you, this is the future, and God knows what technology they're trying to allude to. But again, they're saying that this is the same pattern that your mother has as you, or they're fooled until the mother actually pops out of the suit, right?
Yeah, it's unclear what is going to happen.
I find it really hard to follow science fiction shows when they're unbelievable.
I mean, they just haven't explained here,
I'm
right?
joking.
Like, they're teasing you like, oh, it turns out it wasn't Michael, it was her mom. Who not only is her mom alive, but like, what the heck is going on? How did she end up faking this sort of red herring thing of making us believe it was Michael and not her mom?
Yeah, so I want to know, like, so does she have like a bat signal in the future that sort of follows Michael Burnham when she's in trouble, and where does she eat and sleep, in the future? Now there's a whole bunch of questions I want to have answered about her mom, right? What's she been doing for the last 30 years or whatever, right? Why didn't she come back earlier?
Yeah, I mean, we are.
Is Michael Burnham going to punch her in the nose next week?
She's just getting angry, punching everybody. And Saru's just in the back and like, do it.
Leave him to it. This has to happen. Exactly.
We are
let this play out.
What did we say? Episode 10? I think there are 13, possibly 14 episodes for season 2.
That. We have the technology.
So we've got some more time to deal with this.
They got some splaining to do, Lucy.
Yeah. So we'll see what ends up happening, starting next week.
Yes.
I was wondering if the time crystal thing they were talking about is related to what Mudd had, Harry Mudd.
Oh, true. Yeah. By the way, 14 episodes, real-time follow-up.
Oh, thank you. 14 episodes. Okay, so they got 4 more to play with to resolve this. 4 more hours, roughly. And Harry Mudd had the time thingy. He had like the time watch, whatever it was that he had that was letting them do that really crazy episode, the time loop episode.
So there's some good news for Spotcast, by the way. I just realized here as I'm looking at this thing. We're trying to figure out what to do in the off-season, right? Well, it turns out the last episode of Discovery is April 18th, right? So what's happening in the middle of or near the end of April that we could probably talk about instead of Discovery?
Do we have Avengers right in there?
No, even better than that. We have 8 episodes or 7 episodes of, 6 episodes of.
I'm racking my brain trying to think what starts.
Game of Thrones.
Oh, Game of Thrones starts there. Oh,
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Navy SEALs.
That's the episode. What did you think of this episode as a recap?
I think last week's episode was much more compelling. This one was kind of, you knew she was going to die, but you knew she was going to be saved, and again, the whole ethics of putting a person in a chair, and it's all against Starfleet, and I don't know, it's odd. I mean, like there was a distinct chance that maybe they were wrong about the way the Red Angel is signaled, right? Turns out they were right, but what if they were wrong, right? Like, again, here's another question for you. So they were saying that most of the cases where the Red Angel shows up is because Michael Burnham was in distress, right? Mm-hmm. Right, and there was something was going to happen to her, whether it was whatever kind of war it was or what was happening was going to affect her. She was going to be, detrimental to her health. How does that explain the people in the episode where they're transported from Earth to this other planet?
Let's see. So does the Red Angel appear in that episode, or just one of the signals?
Episode, but New Eden it was called, right? Where the people are transported from Earth to this new Terralisium, right?
Yeah, but did the Red Angel actually appear in that episode?
Not to Michael Burnham, but the Red Angel brought the people from Earth to there. Yeah,
so I think what they were trying to figure out is they know that the Red Angel is leaving the signals, and they're unclear why, what exactly is the pattern with the signals and how are they important. You're right, there is some prep work to bring the people to Terralisium. So
what's the point of having Michael Burnham on that planet then? Or Pike or Oyo or whatever her name is?
It's all part of the litany of questions I'm sure they're going to have to ask Mrs. Burnham of what in the world's going on? What exactly were you doing there? What is about to happen that you were trying to prevent? And it seems like Michael is potentially, before we would have been Michael's obviously important to this, and now it's not like maybe this is just the mother helping out her daughter. It could be that, maybe Michael herself is not necessarily important to this, or she could be, right? It could be that her role on Discovery is important for what Discovery needs to do to save the universe.
Yeah. Who knows? So it's an interesting thought I just had. So the whole of Discovery first season was based on Michael Burnham and her mutiny and her sabotage or whatever it was that she did, mutiny, right? And apparently this whole second season is centered around her relationship with the Red Angel, right? What are they going to do when Sonequa Martin Green decides to quit the show?
I'd assume that the whole show show is, I mean, Michael Burnham is the main character.
Yeah.
Things sort of flow through her. So I think wherever they end the show, that's the end of Sonequa Martin Green's relationship with the show, and vice versa. If she really wanted to end, after next season, they'd probably be, all right, 3 seasons, we're out. Let's move on to the Picard series. Let's move on to the Georgiou series.
Oh, you think it's going to be like that?
Yeah, I'd be shocked if Discovery got a full 7 seasons.
Yeah, because it's going to really impinge upon the original series, right? At that point, from timeline point of view, right?
Yeah, and I think you can build it as 3 to 5 season arc.
Well, what's the decision behind having 7 seasons? Because I guess Discovery and Voyager, do they both have 7 seasons as well?
I don't know for certain. We'd have to look that up. I would guess that they're, again, we're comparing to broadcast sort of stuff, right? That TOS, the original series, was canceled after 3. TNG was mega popular. A revival of interest in Star Trek from TOS and the motion picture series, movie series as well. And so it went for 7 seasons. Maybe they felt like, hey, that's a good idea. DS9 was successful enough to get 7.
DS9 went from Voyager 93 to 99. Is that 7 seasons?
I believe they had 7 seasons. Voyager had 7 seasons.
It's from
it was kind of a shocker.
Voyager was 95 to 2001. Is that 7? That's 6, right?
Well, so there's overlap in years.
Oh no, you're right. 7 seasons. There are 7
right,
seasons.
and then Enterprise has 4. So it's unclear to me what they would do necessarily with something like Discovery. It's not beholden to the same sort of advertiser concerns like over-the-air normal broadcast stuff. I mean, yes, it is being broadcast in some places like Space Channel and stuff, but there's the money from the streaming from Netflix going around worldwide. There's the money from direct CBS All Access subscriptions in the United States. So I think they can take some of those chances of you can have some solid 1 season, 2 season, 3 season, 5 seasons, 7 season, 10 seasons. I guess it just depends on what they're looking to do on a project. Oh.
Weird. So did Discovery... I'm just looking at Enterprise here, by the way. As you said, 4 seasons. The last episode is called These Are the Voyages. Did they actually wrap up that show?
Yeah, in sort of a weird, not super satisfying sort of way.
Oh, William T. Riker is in this episode.
Yeah, and Deanna Troi as well.
Oh, really? Okay, I'll have to go back and watch that one. It's been a while since I've seen it. 2005. It's been a long time since I saw this.
It's been a long road.
Yeah. Got to get some Cardassians into this Discovery, but I guess that can't happen, right?
I guess it's unclear, what they can or can't do with some of the stuff. I definitely think Cardassians, Romulans, and so forth will show up in the Picard series. The Georgiou series might be...
And Narsicans, right? Possible.
Narsicans, yeah. Unclear. When you have a prequel series that have to sort of think about, how far can they go? I think the Federation knew of Cardassia well before, TNG takes place, because it talked about, a 10-year war or something in whichever season it is that the Enterprise crew encounters the Cardassian folks dealing with the rogue captain. I think it's called The Wounded, where they end up dealing with the rogue captain who's blowing up Cardassian stuff. And they're set to capture him. They could definitely have known about Cardassia even in Kirk's time, and we just didn't see the episodes where they were important, right? Even in TNG, they're not a super important series. In Deep Space Nine, they become a much more important one over time. So,
right.
The ebbs and flows of empires and governments, that sort of thing.
All right. Well, I guess we should get a move on here. So we have on the watch list. What do you have on the watch list, Tommy?
I have here a blog post on Captro Bao's blogspot blog entitled "Remastering Star Trek Deep Space Nine with Machine Learning."
Right. I had a look at this one earlier. You're going to have to explain it to me because I don't see the difference.
It might depend. I noticed that unfortunately, I think you really need to make sure that you are getting the highest quality stream, if possible, from YouTube.
Yeah.
And maybe even watch and rewatch a couple times to help whatever magic process they use. Because I admit I could not tell from the screenshots that well, but the video, especially the side-by-side video, it's the second video they have, I could definitely tell there. But
really?
Not initially, because my YouTube was all pixelated until I just let it sit there and reload.
So I see the difference here. I'm just flipping back and forth between the one where they're showing the baseball, and the size of the image is it's in a black field. It's much smaller, and then it's basically blown up to fill my screen on my 24-inch monitor, and it's not super sharp, but the fact it's been rezzed up and doesn't look like it's been rezzed up. There's no pixelization, I guess, right?
Right.
Maybe that's the difference.
So this individual is using a tool called AI Gigapixel. So this is a fan. This is not like an officially blessed thing. Yeah. And they mentioned that multiple times of like, hey, I don't have control over this, but I was just playing with it as a side project. Because they do this to their Final Fantasy VII game. I guess there must be some sort of fan modification that has up-resed, upscaled backgrounds, texture stuff. And so they did that to Deep Space Nine. Apparently it uses machine learning in some way, shape, or form to do this. But the side-by-side video is interesting because a big problem for people who are out there streaming Star Trek series on something like a Netflix, TNG looks great because Netflix happens to have the like remastered. They went back to like the film. They got higher HD quality stuff. They think they even redid some of the special effects stuff, so it looked better on HD versus SD quality stuff. Yeah. Unfortunately, my understanding is they did not have that option with, for sure, Voyager and probably a lot, if not all, of Deep Space Nine, which were shot on video. And so they, whatever, Minolta or Sony Digicam was able to handle back then, it's like, you can't add anything better. You don't have the high fidelity of film to deal with. Right. So this individual is using this technique as like, hey, can we get kind of part of the way there? The same way that like Blu-ray and DVD players will like upscale to HD and 4K in some cases, depending on the hardware you have. Yeah.
So I'm amazed that they would think that video, even back then, would be like something that would last into the future. I guess they were just considering getting it out and getting into syndication. I guess they weren't thinking, like, why would they not think that people would have giant wall-sized TVs in the future?
I mean, I think it wasn't like a foregoing concern because the advantage they were, future media, higher quality, archival type process to like continue to squeeze, blood out of this stone. I think they were looking at it as like, oh, video means that we don't have to wait and process film. We can see immediately how a take went, and it's easier. Like we don't have to convert or anything. It's ready to roll when we go add, some digital compositing type stuff. I think the ease of production was on their mind and not necessarily like, oh, what if someday people have even higher definition type televisions, and
right
how would our show that we just want to sell Huggies and Coca-Cola to the sponsors, how are we going to deal with some mythical world where people are buying stuff like this? So I just thought it was interesting to see. It's kind of cool. I kind of hope that the powers that be will do something like this, because it is, Deep Space Nine and Voyager are still enjoyable to watch on Netflix, but it's definitely not as enjoyable as the beautiful HD quality for the TNG
definitely
series.
The quality of the image is quite a bit different, right?
Yeah, and I haven't looked to see what Enterprise looks like. I don't know the story with them. I'm going to assume they're video as well, because I have a hard time believing they shot in film for this sort of purpose. And I don't think they would have had like, oh look, like we've got these IMAX cameras that we can use to film our sci-fi TV show. Right.
Cool. All right. Well, my pick is obviously going to be once again Don Quixote. I don't know if it was my pick last week. I can't remember. But
picked so nice, we picked it twice.
Yes, the Man Who Killed Don Quixote, which is opening April 10th. So in about not this week, coming up the week after. So and apparently the tickets are already on sale, and I don't know how many people are buying them, but I checked earlier today, and there was no seats sold in the theater that I would go to see them. So I might be going by myself. Who knows? But yeah, if any other if any other Spotcast fans want to come with me, you know where I'll be, Young and Dundas. So hey, Pime, if people want to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithAHair.
All right, my name is Timitra, Timmitra. On the Twitch machine is how you'll find me crying over my not getting a WWDC ticket again. Anyway, so we'll see you in the future. Bye.
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 If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help us out on our website at spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
just realized a moment I did not write in the notes.
Yeah.
But the Without You, Harry Nilsson fact check from last week reminds me of the fact that they made a big deal of that moment where the replacement crew member, Lieutenant Nielsen, she comes out to
what was
replace
that about?
Ariam.
Everybody has a double takeover, right?
Well, because like that was Ariam's spot. It'd be like if, I don't know, Worf died and like, oh, here's, Uncle Bob showing up as a replacement.
Yeah, but ironically, right, that was the actress who played Ariam in season 1.
Yeah, when they
That's
ended
why
up
for
doing
me
that
it was
swap.
kind of like, what is going on?
Yeah, it was very, there were layers to that moment.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I wonder if people really kind of got that because, she was wearing makeup last season, right? Let me go back to IMDb for a sec.
Yeah, there wasn't really like a little...
I always say her name wrong.
It was an interesting moment because they emphasized it, the awkwardness, but they didn't give the, like, I would guess normally that, like, a Tilly would be off to the side with something like Detmer, but hey, is it kind of weird that, like, somebody else is in Ariam's spot? Like, I know they need somebody, but isn't it still kind of weird that, like, her chair's barely getting cold and there's somebody there to replace?
Yeah, it's Canada's own Sarah Middich. Now, last season she was Ariam, this season she's Lieutenant Nilsson.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what you're saying with the Harry Nilsson thing.
Yeah, because I just happened to glance because it's very physically close in the show notes to last week's show notes. I said, oh, that's right, Lieutenant Nilsson. Like, complete half and sense.
Oh, that said, I did watch Russian Doll, Jonathan's pick from a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah,
and you can sit down and watch it like in, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 hours. So they're 25-minute episodes. They're not very long, but it actually is very entertaining and very entertaining sort of Groundhog Day kind of story. Yeah.
It is. And you saw how the music played into the repetition. Yeah. Just like I've Got You, Babe from Sonny and Cher, Groundhog Day.
Yep. Oh, show.
Yeah. I guess another thing I didn't get into the show itself was it kind of struck me as we were talking about it in the recap that it's interesting that Michael Burnham is really hating on Section 31. And granted, she was angry, but I don't think the Starfleet people feel really comfortable with them because of their methods. And Ash Tyler's like, look, I don't agree with their methods necessarily, but the mission I agree with. Like, the ends justify the means is sort of his position. To have the contrast with Michael Burnham saying, oh, I'm going to sacrifice myself in this, like, Houdini moment to, save the universe, save all life. And Pike and the other people are like, what? No, you can't be doing that. That's crazy. Like, Starfleet doesn't do that. Like, I literally took a vow to not do that sort of thing. And they go through with it. So I feel like there was a layer there of, like, what's the right thing to do here? Would it have been better to not sacrifice Burnham for this huge gamble?
Right.
I don't know. And layers there. There was no episode of The Orville this week. They took 2 weeks off for reasons I'm unclear. So
really,
they'll have one tonight, I believe. But last week there wasn't one, and it was a planned break.
Really? Oh, why would that be? I wonder.
I don't know. I didn't see
March
anything.
Madness, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe, but that's starting now. So you would think now would be the time.
So there's an episode on tonight.
I believe there's one on tonight.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Yeah, I'm not sure what was happening there.
Yeah, don't make no sense. All right.
Yep.
The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. You could do a classic herb-roasted turkey or spice it up and make turkey tacos. Serve up a go-to shrimp cocktail or use Simple Truth wild-caught shrimp for your first Cajun risotto. Make creamy mac and cheese or a spinach artichoke fondue from our selection of Murray's cheese. No matter how you shop, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace all your holiday traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.